Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 25. The Glories of Devotional Service. Text 30. Tad etan me vijanihi yataham manda dir hare sukham budyeya durbodham yosha bhavad anugrahat tad etan me vijanihi yataham manda dir hare sukham budyeya durbodham yosha bhavad anugrahat tad etan me vijanihi yataham manda dir hare sukham budyeya durbodham yosha bhavad anugrahat tad etan me vijanihi yataham manda dir hare sukham budyeya durbodham yosha bhavad anugrahat that same may to me vijanihi, please explain, yata, so that, aham, I, manda, slow, di, whose intelligence, hare, O my Lord, sukham, easily, budhyeya, may understand, durbodham, very difficult to understand, yosha, a woman, bhavat anugrahat, by your grace. Translation. My dear son Kapila, after all, I am a woman. It is very difficult for me to understand the absolute truth because my intelligence is not very great. But if you'll kindly explain it to me, even though I'm not very intelligent, I can understand it and thereby feel transcendental happiness. Purported by Srila Prabhupada. Knowledge of the absolute truth is not very easily understood by ordinary, less intelligent men. But if the spiritual master is kind enough to the disciple, however unintelligent the disciple may be, then by the divine grace of the spiritual master, everything is revealed. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur therefore says, Yasya prasadhad, by the mercy of the spiritual master, the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavat Prasada, is revealed. Devahuti requested her great son to be merciful towards her because she was a less intelligent woman and also his mother. By the grace of Kapila Dev, it was quite possible for her to understand the absolute truth. even though the subject matter is very difficult for ordinary persons, especially women. Today tan me vijanihi yataham mandadir hare sukham buddhyeya durabodam yosha bhavad anugrahat. My dear son Kampila, after all, I am a woman. It is very difficult for me to understand the absolute truth, because my intelligence is not very great. But if you will kindly explain it to me, even though I'm not very intelligent, I can understand it, and thereby feel transcendental happiness. Om Yana Tamarandasya Yagananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Vishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupkadamayam Tatati Swapadantikam Vanchakalpatrubhyas Chakripas Sindhuvyeva Cha Padidanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasti Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So Mother Devahuti here is presenting herself in a very humble way. That is the way of the devotees. Every devotee is feeling that, or should be feeling, that I'm not qualified, I'm unqualified. Actually, I have no real qualification. Rather, I'm completely dependent on mercy. So therefore, my Lord, please be kind to me. Please be merciful to me. So Devahuti here is making reference to the fact that in material terms she is embodied in a female form, and that type of form has certain inbuilt shortcomings, and she is feeling that. And Srila Prabhupada is also making reference to that in the purport, but it's also true that Srila Prabhupada is applying this idea in a broader context, particularly in this Kali Yuga. And no one can say that they are really qualified in any respect. Everyone is fully disqualified. Kalir Doshinide Rajan. Srila Shukadeva Goswami tells Maharaj Parikshit towards the end of Srimad Bhagavatam that this Kali Yuga, this age which we are in now, this is a great ocean of fault. Great ocean of fault. But asti hyeko mahadguna. Still, despite that fact, there's one very important, very significant good quality about this age, and that is that kirtanad eva krishnasya mukta sangha parambrajet. That in this Kali Yuga, if we simply focus our attention on glorifying the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, then mukta sangha, then we can easily become liberated from the material association, material entanglement, and param vrajet. We can then go to the supreme abode. And that applies universally. One time in this respect, in the particular context that Mother Devahuti is making her humble entreaty to the Lord in, Srila Prabhupada was asked by one lady that are women really less intelligent? This has actually been a debate. Even within this movement, it's been a debate. Is it really true? Because oftentimes people, I think, are not intelligent enough to tell, actually, who is more or less intelligent. What is intelligence? What would genuinely be a symptom of being more intelligent? People are not really intelligent enough to understand these things in general. So anyway, Srila Prabhupada was asked by one of his female disciples, are women really less intelligent? And Srila Prabhupada answered that if you think you're a woman, yes. Actually, we are not these bodies. We are not these bodies. And if we very seriously apply ourselves to the path of Krishna consciousness, revolving around the glorification of Krishna, then we come to the spiritual platform. And on the spiritual platform, then it really does not make very much difference. Actually, if one is truly on the spiritual platform, then definitely it makes no difference. Male, female, old or young, all these material considerations fall away when one comes to the spiritual platform. Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityaitam brahma bhuyaya kalpate. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna makes the point that one who engages fully in devotional service and does not fall down but remains fixed on the spiritual platform, then they immediately transcend. They transcend the modes of material nature, and they immediately come to the level of Brahman. And on the level of Brahman, there's no difference. Everyone is equally situated. And when one comes to the level of Parabrahman, when one actually comes nicely into relationship with Krishna, then there are actually spiritual considerations and spiritual qualifications. And then it's just a matter of sincerity. Then male, female, old, young, doesn't matter. The child may be more qualified. A woman, a man, any race. Ultimately on that very high platform, even species does not matter to a truly liberated living entity who's actually connected with Krishna, directly connected with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For example, in the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, we see there are a number of examples actually. Lord Chaitanya, one time, he was traveling through the Jarikanda forest on his way to visit Vrindavan. And as he was passing through the forest, he was very joyfully chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, always absorbed in transcendental ecstasy, in pure Krishna consciousness. And as he was passing along the path through the middle of the jungle, then he came across one tiger lying on the path, somewhere by the path. And Lord Chaitanya, he was oblivious. He was more or less oblivious to his surroundings. So he just approached the tiger by the path without considering the material, what could possibly have happened on the material level. He just came, and oblivious to the tiger, his foot touched the tiger. Accidentally, his foot touched the tiger. And he, of course, Lord Chaitanya, he was chanting Hare Krishna. That tiger, by the touch of the Lord, through hearing the Hare Krishna mantra from the lips of the Lord, that tiger immediately leapt up and started chanting Hare Krishna and dancing in ecstasy. Then Lord Chaitanya continued a little further on, and he came across there was a gathering, there were many animals, including some elephants. So in a playful mood, Lord Chaitanya approached the elephants who were lying in a small lake or some river, and he splashed them, chanting Hare Krishna. So when they were splashed by the Lord, the elephants leapt up and started roaring the Hare Krishna mantra. And the deer and the other tigers and all the animals became transformed became completely overwhelmed in pure Krishna consciousness. And Chaitanya Charitamrita describes how the tigers and the deer, who are normally natural enemies, the tiger, of course, being a very powerful carnivorous animal, he's very fond of killing and eating the weaker animals like the deer. But the tigers and the deer, they were chanting Hare Krishna very ecstatically and embracing each other and even kissing. Like this, all the animals, they were simply in ecstasy. And it was not just a matter, sometimes we see with animals, that if you just express some emotion, some sort of jolly type of emotion, the animal will respond emotionally. The animal will also start, like a dog, wagging the tail, jumping around, becoming excited. But that is not in the same sense as these animals. These animals were not simply becoming excited, but actually they were manifesting pure Krishna consciousness on the spiritual platform, independent of their bodily conditions. It was no longer a matter of being animals, but they were liberated persons functioning on the spiritual platform in pure Krishna consciousness. So, what to speak of male, female, in the human context, this race or that race, this type of culture, that type of culture. What to speak of those things not applying on the spiritual platform, but even the differences between species don't apply. When people or living beings actually come to the spiritual platform and become delivered from their material entanglement. We also see in the case of Prahlad Maharaj. He was a 5-year-old child, an uneducated boy. And of course we see many little children, 5-year-old children, and we see that they are not very competent. They are not very clever to understand philosophy, the intricacies of Krishna consciousness. They're not equipped like that because materially they haven't developed yet. They're just beginning to develop. But Prahlad Maharaj, he was a 5-year-old boy, but he was a liberated soul. He was completely delivered from his bodily entanglement and situated on the most exalted level of pure devotional service. So in the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, we can read his different realizations, his prayers to Lord Nrsimhadev, his preaching before that, his preaching to his school friends. And we see that this is very wonderful. His preaching to his school friends is very profound, very deep, very philosophically astute. His prayers to Lord Nrsimhadev are very glorious and very wonderful. Perhaps none of us as adults and supposedly somewhat Krishna conscious persons, perhaps none of us could spontaneously utter such profound and appropriate expressions of glorification for the Supreme Lord philosophically as Prahlad Maharaj. And certainly no ordinary 5-year-old child. There's no question of themselves expressing themselves in any sophisticated way on anything. But Prahlad Maharaj, he was expressing such exalted philosophy, making such important statements that they're included in Srimad Bhagavatam, the topmost transcendental scripture. So just see. But the point is that one has to come to the spiritual platform. If one remains on the material platform, then other considerations apply. Just like, for example, here Mother Devahuti is talking about, she's making reference to herself as being a less intelligent woman. So the female condition, male condition, they have their inherent defects. Males, of course, among numerous other things, they have a somewhat more manifest desire to control. Therefore, if, at least historically, if a woman has been put in charge of certain things, then the men get upset. Simply because they have that desire to control, actually. Women, female condition, among, of course, many other things, generally means more emotional. More emotional. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna explains in the second chapter that if you contemplate the objects of the senses, then you develop attachment. From attachment, lust develops. From lust, anger arises. Then from that anger comes bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost. And when intelligence is lost, one falls down into the material pool. So when part of that whole procedure, Lord Krishna says, is that at a certain point that one's emotions become aroused. In this particular case, the emotion of anger becomes aroused. And when the emotions are aroused too strongly, then they interfere with the functioning of intelligence. And rather than dealing with situations nicely in a correct way and being able to overcome problems systematically, but emotionally one becomes bewildered and one doesn't know what to do. And one falls down. So being situated on the material emotional platform is dangerous. And those embodied in female body, that tends to be there more often than not. This is generally the rule. One of the important factors in the female condition. Of course, not that men are unemotional, but they're less emotional. Sometimes they're accused of being cold. Anyway, we won't get into that sort of thing, but they're less emotional. Therefore, at least some facility is there to be able to deal with things more calmly and in that way more correctly. So male condition, female condition, both conditions have their drawbacks. And we should be aware, and particularly here, Mother Devahuti is giving a warning to women. She's giving some indication that we should be careful and not be swept away by our emotions, by our material condition, but rather we should take shelter of someone who can help us to steady the mind and become fixed up on the proper platform. So of course this means, Srila Prabhupada is explaining in the purport, that we should take shelter of bona fide spiritual master. And that of course applies to everyone. Men, women, everyone should take shelter of bona fide spiritual master. And through being directed nicely, one should learn how to manage one's life in such a way that one is not swept away by material influence. And when one is able to manage one's life, focus one's life very nicely in Krishna consciousness, then one transcends the modes of material nature. One comes to the level of Brahman, and one leaves behind all the shortcomings which are there on the material platform. So this applies to everyone. As far as the debate, who is superior or more intelligent or whatever, men or women, as far as that is concerned, we don't really worry about it so much. We understand that the greatest manifestation of intelligence is to understand that Krishna is God. Anyone who does not understand that, they are definitely less intelligent than they should be. They're dangerously unintelligent, actually. And anyone who's understood that Krishna is God, they are more intelligent. So in our Krishna consciousness movement, we see that it is not only men who are becoming Krishna conscious, but women are also. So therefore this discussion, this debate, is not terribly relevant, not terribly important in Krishna consciousness. Rather, we should understand, all of us should grasp this fact, that we must take shelter of Krishna, take shelter of the spiritual master, and do so very seriously. And then whoever you are, whatever your background is, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna makes the point that even if you are the most sinful of all sinners, if you are actually the lowest being to be found anywhere, but if you take shelter, if you become situated on the boat of transcendental knowledge, then you can cross over the ocean of misery. So, material qualification, disqualification, we don't really take very seriously. But rather we should understand that the essential ingredient is that sincerity and seriousness to actually take shelter of Krishna, to actually take shelter of the spiritual master, and make their instructions one with our heart. In the prayer we sing every morning, Shri Guru Charana Padma, there is the line, what is it? Shri Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitte Te Kuriya Aikya Arna Koryo Mane Asha. Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitte Te Kuriya Aikya. So one translation, we in the mornings we actually recite a little different translation, but one translation which is also given, which is correct in fact, is that one should take the words coming from the lotus mouth of the spiritual master, Guru Mukha Padma Vakya, those lotus words, and make them Chitte Te Kuriya Aikya. Make them one with the heart. Aikya, make them one with the heart. So if we make the instructions of the bona fide spiritual master one with our heart, heart, of course, heart means the seat of our being, the very root, like the essence of our being, including our consciousness, our thinking. If we actually take this within our minds and within our very beings, then we are no longer functioning as in our conditioned position, but we are functioning on the basis of the intelligence of the spiritual master and the thinking of the spiritual master. In this way, whatever one's background may be, however foolish one may have been, and unable to understand things, but if one makes the instructions coming from the mouth of the spiritual master, one with one's heart. In other words, if one makes one's thinking the thinking of the spiritual master, then one is and accept the desires of Krishna and the desires of the spiritual master, accept them as our desires, accept their concepts as our concepts, their activities as our activities. In this way, whatever our material background may be, it all falls away. And everything merges, in a Vaishnava sense, merges onto the transcendental platform. In fact, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, this is one point that comes out a little bit in the Ishopanishad course we're going to start this evening. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he makes the point that the impersonalists want to become one with God in a very literal sense. And he makes the point that the Vaishnavas, they also, in one sense at least, they want to become one. So what is the nature of that oneness in the case of the devotees? That oneness is, in the sense that Krishna has certain desires, and so the devotee makes those desires of Krishna his desires. So they're one in desire. Desire, of course, is really the most important aspect of our being. So we become one in that very important aspect of desire. But then Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur goes on to say that he gives the example of Lord Nityananda. Lord Nityananda, he did this. He made the desire of Lord Chaitanya his desire. He gave up his own desires. He made that desire to spread Krishna consciousness and to give even the most fallen conditioned souls Krishna consciousness. That desire of Lord Chaitanya, he made his desire. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur makes the point that Lord Nityananda, he made that desire of Lord Chaitanya's his desire to such an extent that his desire, his version of that desire, was even stronger than Lord Chaitanya's. And he gives the example of Jagai and Madai. When Lord Chaitanya came upon the scene and saw Jagai and Madai and their very degraded condition, he wanted to kill them, even though he is Patita Pavana. That's his mission. But he wanted to kill them. However, Lord Nityananda had made Lord Chaitanya's desire to deliver the conditioned souls his own desire to such an extent that he stopped Lord Chaitanya from killing them and got Lord Chaitanya to accept them. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur makes the point that Lord Nityananda, he had accepted Lord Chaitanya's desire more than Lord Chaitanya held that desire. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur then makes a very interesting point that Lord Nityananda, in one sense, you could say, was more one with Krishna or more one with Lord Chaitanya than Lord Chaitanya was. Of course, that, little unusual idea, little inconceivable. That he was more one with Lord Chaitanya than Lord Chaitanya was one with himself. And in this way, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that if you want to become one with God, like the impersonalists, then become a devotee in this way, and you'll become even more one with God than you could possibly hope to in any other way. Yes, so this is Vaishnava oneness. And of course, obviously, not that it contradicts the idea of being the eternal servant and being a person and like this. Not at all. It's an integral part of personalism, actually. So, whatever our background may be, we may come from the background of the at least prone to be more emotional woman. We may come from the background of being also emotional, but not as emotional, but perhaps a little more on the controlling side, male body. But if we make the instructions of the spiritual master and of Lord Krishna one with our heart, and we actually immerse our lives and immerse our consciousness in those things, then all these other considerations fall away. They actually become, they end up becoming anartha, in fact. Male, female, this race, that race, this age, that age, old, young, materially competent, materially less competent. If our minds remain attached to these ideas as we're trying to advance in Krishna consciousness, actually they become anartha. They become contaminations. So, in fact, in Padma Purana, and Rupa Goswami quotes in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, that, what is that verse? Anyway, he says that anyone who considers the deity to be just a statue made of stone, metal, wood, or the spiritual master to be an ordinary person, or the holy name to be some ordinary sound vibration, or the Charanamrita of the Lord to be some ordinary liquid, or the Vaishnava to be coming from some material background, and that we identify that, oh yes, here we have a certain type of Vaishnava in terms of material background. Then he says, Narakisa, that such a person is already a resident of hell. Narak means hell. So Narakisa, that person's already a resident of hell, if they're thinking in those terms. Krishna consciousness is transcendental. Of course, because we are also prone to, if circumstances are maybe in certain ways, we may be prone also to come back to the material platform. Then even though Krishna consciousness is wholly and solely transcendental, still we may apply certain considerations in terms of social dealings. But this is simply as like a guard, some protection. Otherwise, Krishna consciousness is simply going on the spiritual platform. As Srimad Bhagavatam begins by saying, Dharma projakaita votra paramo nimatsaranam satam. That the Srimad Bhagavatam begins by completely rejecting all religious considerations which are materially motivated. It begins by completely rejecting them, and then it begins, and then you actually start in the process. However, from our own point of view, we should bear in mind that I'm from a fallen background, and I should remember that and not become proud that just see now I'm very spiritual. But we should remember, actually, as Mother Devahuti is doing, she's very advanced, extremely advanced person. She's so advanced that in her previous lifetime, or no, in the next lifetime also, anyway, in various lifetimes, not just one, that would be enough, but more than one, 3 lifetimes, 4 lifetimes, the Supreme Personality of Godhead chooses to accept her as his mother. She's so elevated. Even she also, in somewhat later, takes birth as Devaki and gives birth to Lord Krishna himself. So she's a very exalted person. She's not just some foolish type of conditioned soul. But in her humility, and also we can take that example very nicely, she's considering herself in those terms, that I'm very fallen actually, I'm very disqualified. Therefore, please give me some mercy. Please be very kind to me and help me in my devotional service. So we should try and emulate these ideas, and this will help us in our Krishna consciousness. Any comments or questions?
If you wanted a certain relationship with Krishna, with mother, or friend, or lover, should you apply special services within Krishna consciousness?
Well, the thing is that we already have a relationship, but it's covered. Yeah, it's covered over. So, best idea is just go through the training, like the general training procedures, general course of Krishna consciousness, and it'll come out in due course of time. It's just like, in a sense, that like a child walking, it's already there. It's already there. And if they're just brought up nicely by the parents and encouraged nicely, it'll come out. But if at age, 1 week, they try to get the child to walk, it's foolishness. But in time it'll come. In time it'll come. So it's like that. There's general training needed, just like for a little baby. There's general training needed, and walking will come in due course of time. So we don't want to become, if we try and do like that, sort of force artificially, then just like if you try and get a 1 week old child to walk, the child may get hurt, fall over and hurt himself or herself. So we better just let it come, and it will come. Even another danger is that we have our desire, our attractions, all of our attractions practically, they're tinged materially. When we're on the material platform, all our attractions are completely material. So if you have a male body, you'll have certain attractions. So you may think, oh, let me have a relationship with Krishna in terms of my material nature. Actually, you already have an eternal relationship with Krishna. It may be something totally different. We don't know. No, you may be female in your relationship with Krishna, actually. You may be, who knows? There's no guarantee you're going to be a young man. So if you start trying to adopt a certain relationship on the basis of imagination, then that will become like an impediment to the real realization of the real relationship manifesting. Yeah. So don't worry about it too much. Krishna will reveal in time everything.
And if everything is as advanced or as obvious as, how is it that she kept turning to material creation?
Oh, this is her. She prayed for that. She prayed for that. She wanted to render such a service. Yeah. Actually, that's her eternal relationship. Yeah. So sometimes Krishna, some devotees have a service to Krishna which involves them appearing in the material world regularly, in whatever capacity. Like Arjuna, he's always appearing in the material world. He's always appearing in the material world. In the spiritual world, there's no battle of Kurukshetra for Arjuna. And that's his big service, his main service, taking part in Bhagavad Gita. So Arjuna is always appearing in the material world as part of Krishna's mission, not like us. Not like us, but as part of Krishna's mission. And the same principle applies with Devahood. Where do we go? Well, I haven't read any record on it, so I don't know. Yeah. I know Lord Chaitanya embraced some trees somewhere sometime. They went back to Godhead on the spot. And even the trees themselves disappeared. So, in the cases of these animals, that it's not described. You know, when Lord Chaitanya continued on his way and they stayed back, that's not really described. There's one interesting account that is of one of the followers of Shyamananda Pandit, his actually main disciple. His name was Rasikananda, and he was a very remarkable devotee. So there was one, he was a very famous devotee, and at the time the country was controlled by the Muslims. So, you know, it was difficult. So he passed through one kingdom, or sort of like small area controlled by one man, whether he was really, you know, a king or not, but at least he was in control of the area, and he was a Muslim. So, and he was a very nasty person. He would always abuse the devotees. So he heard that there's this big, popular, famous saint, Rasikananda, passing through my area. Let me go and harass him. So he went, and they met in one village, or town, sort of village town, some sort of settlement. And they were talking, and the Muslim was sort of, you know, in a very offensive way, trying to find fault. Then, right at that moment, one mad elephant, huge elephant, attacked the town or the village, smashing the huts, you know, just little, flimsy little dwellings that people have there. So smashing these, people were running away. So the Muslim told Rasikananda that, you know, we don't like you, we want to kill you. So, but if you can stop this elephant, then we won't kill you. Of course, the elephant was killing people, actually. So it was either the Muslims or the elephant. So Rasikananda, he said, okay. And he turned around, he just walked up to the elephant and started preaching to the elephant. And the elephant stopped in his tracks and just became transfixed. And Rasikananda was preaching to him that you're not this body. What nonsense is this? Strongly. He was really preaching to him, forcefully. And the elephant was just stunned for minutes. It went on and on. I don't know how long, but it went on for some time. Then Rasikananda finally told the elephant, so you surrender to Krishna and you chant Hare Krishna. And the elephant started chanting Hare Krishna. Then the elephant offered his obeisances to Rasikananda. Then the elephant circumambulated Rasikananda and offered his obeisances as he was going, like Dandavat Parikrama, all around Rasikananda, 100 times. Then Rasikananda initiated him, gave him the name Gopal Das, and he became a very prominent preacher amongst the elephant community. And when Rasikananda, he was a traveling preacher. He traveled all over. When he was passing through the area, Gopal Das would bring his elephant friends, and they'd offer their obeisances to Rasikananda. And when Rasikananda was in the area, he would go and beg Gopal would go and beg rice and foodstuffs and deliver them for Rasikananda. So he's listed amongst the famous disciples of Rasikananda. So he carried on, at least according to the description given there.